A waitress whispered 4 words that stopped a Mafia boss mid-toast. He didn't know her. She didn't know him anything. But the wine in his hand was poisoned, and saving his life meant losing her own. What he did next changed everything. The crystal chandeliers of Rossetti's cast golden light across tables draped in white silk. Every seat was filled with men in expensive suits, their laughter echoing off marble walls. This wasn't just dinner. This was power being served on fine china. Marco De Luca sat at the head table, a king among wolves. At 42, he'd built an empire from the ashes his father left behind. His dark hair was graying at the temples, giving him a distinguished look that made people forget he'd killed his first man at 17. Tonight, he wore a charcoal suit that cost more than most people earned in a year. "To new beginnings," said Vincent Calabrese, raising his wine glass. The fat man's smile didn't reach his eyes, but that was normal. Trust was a luxury in their world. Marco lifted his own glass, a 1947 Chateau d'Yquem, golden as sunlight. The merger with the Calabrese family would expand his territory into the docks. More money, more power. Everything was going according to plan. Then she appeared at his elbow. The waitress was young, maybe 25, with dark hair pulled back in a neat bun. Her name tag read Sophia. Her hand trembled as she leaned in, pretending to check his water glass. The restaurant buzzed with conversation, silverware clinking against plates, men laughing too loud at jokes that weren't funny. But Marco heard her perfectly. "Stop. Don't drink that." 4 words. Barely a breath. Marco's hand froze halfway to his lips. The room continued around him. Vincent was saying something about shipments, his underboss was lighting a cigar, but everything faded to white noise. He turned his head slowly, meeting Sophia's eyes. They were brown, wide with terror, but steady. She wasn't joking. She wasn't confused. This wasn't a mistake.
Nobody interrupted Marco De Luca.
Nobody warned him. Nobody dared. His first instinct was anger, hot and immediate. Who was this girl? What game was she playing? But something stopped him. Maybe it was the way her jaw was clenched, like she was fighting every survival instinct to run. Maybe it was the fact that she had everything to lose and nothing to gain. She believed what she was saying. "Problem, Marco?" Vincent's voice cut through. The fat man was watching, his eyes narrowed. Marco's mind raced. If the wine was poisoned, the girl had just saved his life. If it wasn't, she'd just embarrassed him in front of his entire organization. Either way, everyone was watching now. He smiled, the same easy smile that had convinced rivals to drop their guard before he destroyed them. "No problem," Marco said smoothly. "Just admiring the color. Beautiful, isn't it?" He held the glass up to the light, watching the golden liquid catch the chandelier's glow. His bodyguard, Tommy, stood 3 feet away, hand resting casually near his jacket. Marco could see the question in Tommy's eyes. Sophia stepped back, her tray clutched against her chest like a shield. She'd done her part. Now she was trying to disappear. "To new beginnings," Marco said again, louder this time. He brought the glass to his lips. Vincent leaned forward, watching. The whole table watched. Marco tilted the glass, but kept his lips sealed. The wine touched his mouth, wet and cold, but not a drop passed his teeth. He pulled the glass away, letting a satisfied sigh escape. "Perfection," he announced. "Vincent, your taste is impeccable." Vincent grinned, relieved. "Only the best for this occasion." The table erupted in applause. Men raised their glasses, shouting toasts. In the chaos, Marco caught Tommy's eye and gave the smallest nod toward his glass. Tommy understood immediately. 15 years of working together meant they didn't need words. As the applause continued, Tommy accidentally bumped the table. Glasses rattled. In the confusion, he switched Marco's full glass with an empty one from the neighboring setting, then refilled it from a different bottle. Marco watched Sophia retreat toward the kitchen. She didn't run, didn't look back. Professional.
Smart.
"More wine," someone shouted. Marco smiled and raised his new glass, watching the party continue around him. But his mind was ice cold, calculating. If the wine was poisoned, Someone at this table wanted him dead. If it wasn't, he'd just been played by a waitress. Either way, someone was lying. Marco, you all right? His consigliere, Roberto, leaned in. You look pale.
Fine, Marco said.
Just thinking about the future. Roberto nodded, satisfied, and returned to his conversation. But Marco noticed something. Roberto had watched the entire exchange with Sofia. He'd seen the glass switch, and he hadn't said a word. Interesting. The dinner continued. Pasta, veal, more wine. Marco played his part perfectly, laughing at jokes, discussing business, acting like nothing had happened. But his eyes kept drifting to the kitchen door where Sofia had disappeared.
Who was she?
Why risk everything to warn a stranger? And how did she know about the poison? The questions multiplied, but Marco kept his face neutral. In his world, showing weakness meant death. Showing fear meant death. Hell, showing too much interest meant death. So he smiled, drank his safe wine, and waited. Because if there was one thing Marco De Luca had learned in 25 years of survival, it was this. The truth always surfaces. You just have to be patient enough to let it drown everyone else first. The chandeliers sparkled above. The wine flowed. And somewhere in the kitchen, a waitress named Sofia was probably praying she'd survive the night. She wasn't the only one. Marco set his glass down gently, his fingers still wrapped around the stem. Across the table, Anthony Russo, one of Vincent's men, was red-faced and loud, telling a story about a shipment mix-up in Jersey. Everyone laughed on cue, but Marco was watching the glasses. His original wine sat 3 seats down now, golden and untouched in front of Johnny Moretti, his youngest lieutenant. 26 years old, eager to prove himself, always volunteering for the dangerous jobs. The kid didn't even notice the glass wasn't his. Salute to Marco, someone shouted. The table raised their glasses again. Marco lifted his, the safe one, and this time actually drank. The wine was excellent, rich and sweet. Nothing wrong with it at all. He watched Johnny over the rim. The young lieutenant grabbed the poisoned glass, if it was poisoned, and started to lift it. Marco's chest tightened.
He could stop this.
One word and Johnny would put it down. But if the wine was clean, he'd look paranoid.
Weak.
And weakness invited wolves. Johnny brought the glass to his lips and drank deeply. Marco counted seconds.
5, 10,
15. Nothing happened. Relief and doubt flooded through him in equal measure. Maybe Sofia was crazy. Maybe this was all. Johnny coughed. It was small at first, just a throat-clearing sound. He took another sip of wine, laughed at someone's joke, then coughed again. Harder this time. You good, kid? Roberto asked. Yeah, Johnny's face went pale. He gripped the table edge. I just need some air. Too much wine already. Vincent joked. The table chuckled. But Marco saw the sweat beading on Johnny's forehead. Saw the way his hand shook as he tried to stand. This wasn't drunk. This was something else. Johnny pushed back from the table and stumbled toward the restaurant entrance. 2 steps. 3. Then his legs gave out. He hit the marble floor hard. The laughter died instantly. Johnny! Roberto jumped up, rushing over. Others followed. Marco stood slowly, deliberately, his face a mask of concern. Johnny was convulsing now, his body jerking against the floor. Foam appeared at the corners of his mouth. Someone screamed. One of the guests at a nearby table. Call an ambulance. Vincent shouted. Everyone stay calm. Marco's voice cut through the panic like a knife. Immediately, the room quieted. 20 years of authority in those 3 words. He walked to Johnny, knelt beside him. The kid's eyes were wide, terrified, unable to focus. His lips were turning blue. Tommy, Marco said quietly. Seal the exits. Nobody leaves. Tommy moved immediately, gesturing to the other bodyguards. Within seconds, men in suits blocked every door. The civilians in the restaurant started murmuring, frightened. What the hell, Marco? Vincent stood up, his chair scraping loudly. The kid's dying and you're... He drank from my glass, Marco said, loud enough for everyone to hear. Silence. Complete and absolute. Vincent's face went white. What? The glass was switched during the toast. Marco continued, standing up. His voice was calm, but his eyes swept the room like a predator. Someone poisoned my wine. Johnny drank it by accident. The implications hit like a bomb. Poison meant assassination. Assassination meant war. Everyone in this room was now a suspect. That's insane, Roberto said. Who would? That's what we're going to find out. Marco pulled out his phone. I'm calling my personal doctor, not an ambulance. And nobody, he looked around the room, nobody leaves until I know what happened here. On the floor, Johnny had stopped convulsing. His breathing was shallow, ragged. Someone's wife was crying. Marco's mind was ice cold despite the chaos. Sophia had been right. The poison was real, which meant someone at this table, someone close enough to know his drinking habits, wanted him dead. He looked at Vincent. The fat man seemed genuinely shocked, but shock could be faked. Roberto looked angry, also easy to fake. Tommy stood by the door, solid and reliable as always. Anyone could be the traitor. Marco, Vincent said carefully, if someone tried to kill you at my celebration dinner, I swear on my mother's grave. Save it, Marco interrupted. Nobody swears anything until we know what we're dealing with. His phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Kitchen exit. Blue sedan. I can explain everything. Sophia. Marco deleted the text immediately and slipped the phone back in his pocket. The waitress was still here, somewhere in the building. She had answers. But first he needed to control the situation. Lock down the kitchen, he ordered Tommy. I want every staff member accounted for. Nobody talks to anyone until I say so. Tommy nodded and disappeared through the kitchen doors. On the floor, Johnny took one final, shuddering breath. Then nothing. The kid was dead, and Marco's war had just begun. The doctor arrived 18 minutes later, a small, nervous man named Dr. Chun who'd been patching up Marco's organization for a decade. He knew when to ask questions and when to keep his mouth shut. This was a shut-up moment. Dr. Chun knelt beside Johnny's body, checked for a pulse, then looked up at Marco and shook his head. Official. The kid was gone. I need to examine him properly, Dr. Chun said quietly. Somewhere private. Use the manager's office, Marco ordered. Tommy, help him move the body. 2 bodyguards lifted Johnny carefully, his arms hanging limp. Vincent's wife turned away, her hand over her mouth. The other guests, legitimate businessmen and their wives who'd been invited for appearances, huddled together near the bar, terrified. Ladies and gentlemen, Marco addressed the room, his voice smooth despite the corpse being carried past him. I apologize for this tragic incident. One of my associates had a severe medical emergency. For legal purposes, I need statements from everyone present. Please remain seated. You'll all be released shortly. It was a lie wrapped in courtesy. Nobody was going anywhere until he had answers. Vincent approached, his face slick with sweat. Marco, this is a disaster. If the police... Won't be any police. Marco cut him off. This stays between us. Understood. Vincent nodded quickly. Too quickly. Marco filed that away. Roberto appeared at his other side, phone in hand. I've got our lawyers on standby, and I put word out to our people full lockdown. If this was a hit, whoever ordered it might try to move tonight.
Good, Marco said.
Then, quieter. Who knew I'd be drinking that specific wine tonight?
Roberto frowned.
The wine? Vincent chose it. It was his celebration, his selection. Who else knew? His sommelier, maybe. The restaurant staff, Roberto paused. And anyone Vincent told, which could be his whole crew. Too many people. Too many possibilities. Marco's phone buzzed again. Another text from Sophia. They're coming for me.
Please.
His jaw tightened. The waitress was running out of time, and so was he. If she disappeared before he could question her, he'd lose his only lead. I need some air, Marco announced. Roberto, you're in charge. Nobody leaves, nobody makes calls. Anyone tries, shoot them in the leg. Roberto's eyes widened slightly, but he nodded. Understood. Marco walked toward the kitchen, Tommy falling into step behind him. The kitchen was chaos. Chefs frozen mid-prep. Waiters clustered nervously near the dish station. They all stared as Marco entered. "Everyone out," Tommy ordered.
Now.
They scattered like roaches, disappearing through the back exit into the alley. Within seconds, the kitchen was empty except for Marco, Tommy, and the sound of something boiling over on a stove. "Boss?" Tommy asked. Marco scanned the kitchen. Industrial refrigerators, stainless steel counters, a door marked emergency exit. He moved toward it, pushed it open. The alley was dark, lit only by a single flickering streetlight. A blue sedan sat 30 feet away, engine running. Marco could see a silhouette in the driver's seat. "Sophia. Want me to grab her?" Tommy asked, hand moving toward his gun. "No," Marco said. "Wait here. Anyone comes through this door, who isn't me, stop them." "You sure that smart boss?" "Could be a setup." Marco almost smiled. "If a 25-year-old waitress can kill me, I deserve to die." He walked into the alley alone. The sedan's window rolled down as he approached. Sophia sat behind the wheel, her waitress uniform replaced by jeans and a jacket. Her hands gripped the steering wheel, so tight her knuckles were white. "You actually came," she said, her voice shaking. "You saved my life," Marco replied, stopping 5 feet from the car. "That buys you 5 minutes of conversation before my people find you. Start talking. I need protection first. A guarantee. You need to explain how a waitress knew my wine was poisoned before I get very impatient," Marco interrupted. "4 minutes." Sophia took a shaky breath. 3 days ago, I was serving a private room upstairs. 2 men were talking. They didn't know I was behind the partition clearing tables. They mentioned your name. Said Tuesday night, tonight, was perfect because you'd be celebrating, drinking your guard down. What men? I don't know. I didn't see their faces. But one of them, she hesitated. One of them knew everything. Your favorite wine, which glass you'd use, even that you always toast before drinking. It wasn't random. Someone close to you set this up. Marco's blood ran cold. Why warn me? You don't know me. Because they said after you died, they'd burn down the east side. My family lives there. My little brother, my mother. Her voice cracked. They said it would look like a gang war. Hundreds would die. A car turned into the alley behind them, headlights blazing. Sophia's eyes went wide with fear. "Go," Marco said quickly.
"Drive. Now."
"But..." "Go." Sophia didn't need to be told twice. The sedan's tires screeched as she floored the accelerator, disappearing around the corner in a blur of red taillights. The approaching car stopped 10 feet away. Marco recognized it immediately, one of his own security vehicles. 2 of his men stepped out, hands near their weapons. "Boss, Roberto sent us," the driver said. "Wanted to make sure you were safe." "I'm fine," Marco replied, walking back toward the kitchen door. His mind was racing. Roberto had sent them. Roberto, his consigliere for 8 years. His right hand. The man who knew everything about his operations. The man who would know exactly which wine he'd drink. "Get back inside," Marco ordered. "Tell Roberto I'm checking the perimeter." The men hesitated, then obeyed. Marco waited until they disappeared before pulling out his phone and calling Tommy. "I need you to do something quietly," Marco said. "Pull the security footage from tonight. All of it. And don't tell Roberto." Silence on the other end. Then, "Boss, you think?" "I don't think anything yet. Just do it." "On it." Marco ended the call and stood in the alley for a moment, breathing in the cold night air. A waitress he'd never met had just risked everything to save his life. Meanwhile, someone he trusted, someone he'd elevated, protected, enriched, wanted him dead. The math didn't add up, and Marco hated math that didn't add up. 20 minutes later, Marco sat in Rossetti's security office, a cramped room filled with monitors showing different angles of the restaurant. Tommy had worked fast, pulling the footage from 6 hours earlier. "There," Tommy said, pointing at screen 3. The timestamp read 6:47 p.m., an hour before the dinner started. Sophia appeared on camera, carrying a tray of wine glasses toward the private dining room. She moved normally at first, then paused near the wine station. Her head turned, checking if anyone was watching. Then she quickly switched 2 bottles. She set it up, Tommy said. Boss, the girl played you. But Marco was studying her face on the monitor. Sophia wasn't smiling or confident. She looked terrified. Her hands shook as she made the switch. This wasn't the behavior of an assassin. This was someone who didn't know what else to do.
Keep watching, Marco said.
The footage continued. At 7:15 p.m., 2 men in suits entered through the restaurant's front entrance.
They didn't join the main party.
Instead, they were escorted to a private room upstairs, the same area Sophia had mentioned. Zoom in on their faces, Marco ordered. Tommy worked the controls. The image pixelated, then cleared.
Marco leaned closer.
He recognized one of them, Frank Delgado, a mid-level operator who worked for the Calabrese family. Vincent's man. Son of a bitch, Marco breathed. You want me to grab Vincent?
Tommy asked.
Not yet. Marco's mind was working through possibilities. If Vincent wanted him dead, why do it at his own celebration dinner? It made Vincent the obvious suspect. No one was that stupid, unless that was exactly the point. Frame Vincent, start a war between the families, and someone else profits from the chaos. Who benefits if Vincent and I destroy each other? Marco asked aloud. Tommy thought for a moment. Other families could move in on the territory. Or someone inside one of our organizations takes over when the leadership is dead, Marco finished. The door to the security office opened. Roberto stepped in, his face concerned. There you are. I've been looking everywhere. We've got a problem. The Calabrese crew is getting anxious. Vincent's demanding to leave with his people. Let them go, Marco said, not taking his eyes off the monitors.
Roberto blinked. What?
But you said. I said let them go. This wasn't Vincent. How do you know? Marco finally turned to face his consigliera. Roberto stood in the doorway, his expensive suit perfect despite the chaos of the evening. His silver cufflinks caught the monitor light. Those cufflinks had been a gift from Marco himself 3 years ago, after Roberto helped negotiate the peace treaty with the Russians. Because Vincent's too smart to poison me at his own party, Marco said carefully, watching Roberto's reaction. Whoever did this wanted it to look like Vincent. Wanted us to go to war. Roberto nodded slowly. That makes sense. So what's our move? We wait. See who makes the next mistake. Marco stood up. In the meantime, I want increased security on all our operations. Double guards, rotation every 6 hours. Nobody moves product without my direct approval. That's going to slow everything down, Roberto said. That's the point. If someone's making a play, slowing down forces them to show their hand. Roberto's jaw tightened slightly, just for a second, then relaxed. Smart. I'll make the calls. As Roberto left, Marco caught Tommy's eye. His bodyguard had seen it too. That tiny moment of frustration when Marco said he'd slow down operations. Someone was in a hurry, and people in a hurry made mistakes. Dr. Chen's private clinic occupied the second floor of a building Marco owned in the industrial district. No questions, no records, no witnesses. By 2 a.m., Johnny Moretti's body lay on a steel examination table under harsh fluorescent lights. Marco stood against the wall, arms crossed, watching the doctor work. Tommy waited by the door. The room smelled like disinfectant and death. Preliminary findings, Dr. Chen said, not looking up from his examination. Acute respiratory failure, cardiac arrest, neurological shutdown. All within 15 minutes of ingestion.
What kind of poison does that?
Marco asked. Dr. Chen pulled out a vial of Johnny's blood, holding it up to the light. I'll need to run a full toxicology panel, but based on the symptoms, he paused, choosing his words carefully. This isn't something you buy on the street. This is sophisticated. Medical grade. How sophisticated? The kind used by professionals who want it to look natural. Another hour, maybe 2, and the victim would have been alone somewhere. Could have been blamed on a heart attack, stroke, aneurysm. By the time anyone thought to check for poison, it would have metabolized enough to be nearly undetectable. Marco felt ice settle in his stomach. So, if I'd drunk it at the table, finished dinner, gone home, you would have died in your sleep.
Clean.
Quiet. No immediate suspicion. Dr. Chen finally looked up. Whoever planned this knew exactly what they were doing. They knew your routine. Knew you'd go home after dinner, probably alone or with minimal security. By morning, you'd be dead, and it would look natural enough that even an autopsy might miss it. But Johnny died immediately, Tommy said from the doorway. Because he drank the entire glass quickly, Dr. Chen explained. Concentrated dose, empty stomach, younger metabolism processing it faster. It accelerated everything. If Marco had sipped it slowly throughout dinner like planned, the symptoms would have been gradual. Tired, maybe a headache. Nothing alarming until it was too late. Marco walked to the table, looking down at Johnny's pale face. The kid had been eager, loyal, stupid enough to be brave. He died because he picked up the wrong glass. Random chance. Dumb luck. What's the poison called? Marco asked. Dr. Chen hesitated. I need the full panel to be certain, but if I had to guess? Batrachotoxin derivative. Extremely rare. It's a modified version of what poison dart frogs produce, but synthesized and enhanced. Military applications, some black market labs in Eastern Europe. Very, very expensive. How expensive?
$52,000.
Maybe more. Dr. Chen set down his instruments. Marco, whoever wanted you dead spent serious money and had serious connections. This isn't a rival family putting out a contract. This is someone with resources who wanted it done perfectly. The door opened. Roberto walked in, his face grim. We've got another problem. Marco didn't turn around. What now? The waitress, Sophia. I had our people track down her apartment like you asked. It's empty.
Cleared out.
Neighbors say she left 3 days ago with 2 suitcases. 3 days ago, Marco repeated slowly. The same time she'd overheard the conversation. She'd been planning to run even before tonight. There's more, Roberto continued. I ran her background.
Sofia Russo.
26 years old. Started working at Rossetti's 4 months ago. But here's the thing, before that, no employment record. No credit history.
No social media.
It's like she didn't exist before February. Tommy straightened. Fake identity. Has to be, Roberto said. Real question is, who is she really? And why plant someone in that restaurant months in advance? Marco's mind raced through the implications. If Sophia was planted, then this wasn't a spontaneous plan. Someone had been preparing this for months. Setting up pieces, waiting for the right moment. The 2 men she overheard, Marco said. The ones in the private room. Pull the credit card receipts from Rossetti's.
I want to know who reserved that room.
Roberto pulled out his phone. Already did. Room was reserved under a corporate account, Midtown Shipping LLC. I checked. It's a shell company. Dissolved 2 days ago. Of course it is. Marco felt the walls closing in. Every lead turned into another dead end. Whoever orchestrated this was smart, careful, and had unlimited resources. What about the wine itself? Tommy asked Dr. Chen. Could you trace where the poison was added? Dr. Chen shook his head. The bottle was opened at the table. So either the poison was in the glass beforehand, or someone tampered with the bottle before service. Either way, it required inside access. Inside access, Marco repeated. He looked at Roberto. Who schedules my dinners? Who coordinates with restaurants about wine selections? Roberto's face went pale.
Ido.
The room fell silent except for the hum of refrigeration units. You think Roberto started. I think someone close to me is a traitor, Marco interrupted. And right now, everyone's a suspect. Including you. By dawn, Marco's penthouse became a fortress. 20 floors above the city, floor-to-ceiling windows offered a view of the skyline turning pink with sunrise. But Marco wasn't looking at the view. He sat at his desk, surrounded by 5 phones, 3 laptops, and enough caffeine to kill a normal man. He hadn't slept. Armed guards stood at every entrance. Tommy had swept the entire floor for bugs twice. The elevator required 3 separate security checks. Nobody got in without Marco's personal approval. And still, he didn't feel safe. Cancelled the shipment to Newark, Tommy reported, walking in with a tablet. Also postponed the meeting with the Russians, delayed the casino opening, and pulled our guys back from the waterfront. Good, Marco said, rubbing his eyes. What else? Roberto's been calling every hour. Wants to know why you're shutting down operations. Let him wonder. Tommy set down the tablet. Boss, we can't stay locked down forever. We've got products sitting in warehouses, deals going cold, people getting nervous. The longer we wait, the more desperate the trader gets, Marco finished. Desperate people make mistakes. I want them squirming. A knock at the door. One of the guards entered. Sir, there's a situation. Channel 7-inch. Marco grabbed the remote and turned on the massive TV mounted on the wall. A morning news anchor appeared, her face serious. Authorities are investigating the sudden death of John Moretti, 26, who collapsed at an upscale restaurant last night. While officials are calling it a medical emergency, sources close to the investigation suggest possible foul play. Moretti was known to have connections to. Marco muted it. How did they get his name already? Someone leaked it, Tommy said darkly. Question is who? Marco's phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. You're running out of time. They're moving faster than you think. Sophia. Still alive, still watching. He typed back. Where are you? 3 dots appeared, then disappeared. No response. Another knock. Roberto entered without waiting for permission, his face flushed with anger. Marco, we need to talk.
Now.
Then talk, Marco said, not looking up from his phone. You're destroying everything we've built. Shutting down operations, canceling deals. Do you have any idea how much money we're losing every hour? The Russians are threatening to walk. The unions are asking questions. Our own people think you're losing your mind. Good. Roberto's voice rose. Marco, listen to yourself. 1 dead lieutenant, and you're acting like the sky is falling. We've lost people before. We handle it and move on. Marco finally looked up. This wasn't random, Roberto. Someone poisoned wine meant for me. That means someone inside our organization is working against us. Until I know who, everything stops. You're being paranoid. Am I? Marco stood, walking around the desk. Tell me something. Who knew about the dinner with Vincent 3 weeks ago, when it was first scheduled?
Roberto blinked.
What? I don't know you, me, Vincent, probably his people. Who scheduled it? Who made the reservation? I did. That's my job. And who suggested Rossetti's?
Roberto paused.
Vincent's people. They said it was neutral ground, good wine selection.
Convenient, Marco interrupted.
And when did Sophia start working there? For months ago, but Roberto stopped, realization dawning. You think I'm involved? Are you serious right now? I think someone planned this months in advance. Someone with access to my schedule, my preferences, my security protocols. Someone who could coordinate with Vincent's crew and plant a waitress in the right restaurant at the right time. Roberto's face turned red. I've been with you for 8 years. I've taken bullets for this family. And now, because some random waitress whispers in your ear, you're accusing me of treason. I'm not accusing anyone, Marco said calmly.
I'm considering possibilities.
Possibilities?
Roberto laughed bitterly.
You want possibilities? How about this? What if the waitress is the plant? What if she poisoned the wine herself, then saved you to gain your trust?
Classic spy technique.
And now you're so grateful. You're tearing apart your own organization to protect her. Tommy shifted uncomfortably by the door. It wasn't a bad theory. Marco's phone buzzed again. Another text from Sophia. Check Roberto's offshore accounts. Malta. You'll find your answer. He kept his face neutral, sliding the phone into his pocket. Roberto, do you have offshore accounts in Malta? The question hung in the air like smoke. Roberto's eye twitched. Just once. Every businessman has offshore accounts.
You know that.
That's not what I asked. Yes, Roberto said through clenched teeth. I have accounts in Malta. Legitimate accounts for legitimate business. What's your point? My point, Marco said softly, is that you're sweating. And you never sweat. Roberto's hand moved toward his jacket. Instinct, muscle memory, but Tommy was faster. The bodyguard had his gun out before Roberto's fingers touched fabric. Don't, Tommy warned. Roberto froze, hands slowly rising. This is insane. Empty your pockets, Marco ordered. Slowly. Roberto's face twisted with rage, but he complied. He pulled out his phone, wallet, keys, and a small leather notebook. Nothing incriminating. Nothing suspicious. Happy.
Roberto spat.
Marco picked up the notebook, flipped through it. Dates, names, numbers. All business. All legitimate. He tossed it back. Tommy, let him go. Tommy lowered his gun reluctantly. Roberto snatched his belongings off the desk, his hands shaking with fury. You know what? Fine. You want to suspect me? Suspect me. But when this whole thing falls apart because you're too paranoid to run your own organization, don't come crying to me. Roberto headed for the door, then stopped. And for the record, that waitress is playing you. Open your eyes before it's too late. He slammed the door behind him. Tommy exhaled slowly. That went well. He's rattled, Marco said, staring at the closed door. Question is he rattled because he's guilty or because his boss just accused him of treason? Could be both. Marco's phone buzzed. Another text from Sofia. Morningside train station. Coffee shop. 1 hour. Come alone or I disappear forever. He showed it to Tommy. Obvious trap, Tommy said immediately. Probably. You're going anyway.
Yep.
Tommy sighed. At least let me set up counter-surveillance. I'll have 4 men in position before you arrive. Anything goes wrong, we extract you.
Fine.
But they stay invisible. She spooks, we lose her. Morningside train station was a relic from the 70s, cracked tiles, flickering fluorescent lights, and the smell of old coffee and regret. The morning rush had ended, leaving only scattered travelers dragging suitcases and staring at departure boards. Marco entered the coffee shop at exactly 9 a.m. It was a small place wedged between a newsstand and a closed shoeshine booth. 6 tables, all empty except one. Sophia sat in the back corner, a paper cup in front of her. She'd changed clothes again, jeans, a plain gray sweatshirt, hair in a ponytail. She looked exhausted. Marco slid into the seat across from her. You're either very brave or very stupid.
Both, apparently, she said.
Her voice was steady, but her hands trembled slightly around the cup. Thank you for coming. You said you could explain everything. Start explaining. Sophia took a breath. My real name is Sophia Castellano. For months ago, my older brother, Marco, got involved with some people. Bad people. He owed them money, got in over his head. They told him there was a way to clear his debt. All he had to do was provide information. Information about what?
About you.
Your schedule, your habits, your security. He worked in shipping, one of your warehouses on the docks. He had access. She looked down at her coffee. They told him it was just intelligence gathering. Corporate espionage. He didn't know they were planning to kill you. Marco leaned back. Your brother fed information to my enemies. My brother was an idiot who made a terrible mistake. When he realized what they were really planning, he tried to back out. They killed him. Made it look like a mugging, her voice cracked. 3 weeks ago, his body was found in an alley. Shot twice in the head. And you decided to what? Avenge him by saving me? I decided to stop them, Sophia said, meeting his eyes. After my brother died, I found his notes. Details about the assassination plan. They were going to kill you, then burn down the East Side neighborhoods to make it look like gang retaliation. My family lives there. My mother, my younger brother Antonio. He's only 15. Hundreds of people would have died in the crossfire. So you got a job at Rossetti's. I used my brother's notes. I knew when the dinner was scheduled, knew they'd need someone on the inside to guarantee you'd drink the right wine. So I applied, got hired, and waited. When I heard them talking 3 days ago, confirming the final details, I knew I had to do something. Marco studied her face. Who were they? The men you overheard. I don't know. I really don't. I only saw one of them, older guy, scar on his neck. The other stayed in the shadows. Scar on his neck, Marco repeated. That matched Frank Delgado's description. Vincent's man. But something still didn't add up. How did you know about Roberto's Malta accounts? Sophia hesitated. My brother's notes. He wrote down everything they told him to find out, including where certain people were moving money. Roberto's name was there. What else was in those notes? Names.
Dates.
Payment schedules. She pulled a folded envelope from her pocket and slid it across the table. Everything my brother knew before they killed him. Marco reached for the envelope, but Sophia's hand shot out, holding it down. I need protection first. Real protection. My family, me, we need to disappear. New identities, new city, new life. That's the price. That's a high price for pieces of paper. It's a low price for staying alive, Sophia countered. Do we have a deal? Marco took the envelope. Inside were 3 pages of handwritten notes, dates, times, account numbers, names. His brother's desperate attempt to document everything before it killed him. And it had killed him.
Deal, Marco said.
But you stay close until this is over. If you run, the deal's off. Sophia nodded, relief washing over her face. Thank you. Marco scanned the notes quickly. Most of it confirmed what he already suspected. Roberto had been moving money through Malta for months. Large sums. But there was something else. A name he didn't recognize. Project Cicero. What's Project Cicero? He asked. I don't know. My brother wrote it down but never explained it. Marco's phone buzzed. Tommy. 2 men watching the coffee shop. Vincent's crew. You've been made. He looked up casually, scanning through the shop's window. Sure enough, a black SUV sat across the street. 2 figures visible in the front seats. We need to go, Marco said, standing.
Now.
What's wrong? You're being watched. Come on. They exited through the back, into a service corridor that connected to the train platforms. Marco's phone rang, Tommy again. They're moving, Tommy said. 4 men. 2 from the SUV, 2 more from the east entrance. They're trying to box you in. Meet me at platform 7. Bring the car around. Marco grabbed Sophia's hand and pulled her through the corridor. Behind them, he heard shouting. They'd been spotted. Platform 7 was mostly empty, just a few travelers waiting for the 9:30 to Philadelphia. Marco and Sophia emerged from the stairwell, blending into the small crowd. There, someone yelled. 2 men in suits pushed through the crowd. Marco recognized one. Frank Delgado. The same man from the restaurant footage. Vincent's enforcer.
Marco de Luca.
Frank called out. We just want to talk.
Talk meant bullets.
Marco pulled Sophia behind a concrete pillar as the crowd scattered, screaming. Frank and his partner drew weapons. Then Tommy appeared from the opposite end of the platform, gun already out. 2 shots, precise, controlled. Frank's partner went down. Frank dove behind a bench. Go! Tommy shouted. Marco and Sophia ran toward the parking garage exit. Behind them, more gunfire erupted. Tommy was buying them time. They burst into the parking garage just as Marco's armored Mercedes screeched around the corner, driven by another of his men. The door flew open. Get in. Marco shoved Sophia inside and followed. The car accelerated before his door even closed. Through the rear window, Marco saw Tommy sprint out of the station, still firing at pursuing figures. Tommy's clear, the driver reported. Second car's picking him up.
Marco exhaled.
They'd made it.
Barely.
Sophia pressed against the car door, her chest heaving. They were going to kill me. They were going to kill both of us, Marco corrected. He pulled out his phone and called Roberto. 3 rings.
Marco?
Thank God. I just heard there was a shootout at the train station. Are you?
Ai fine. Marco interrupted.
Vincent's crew tried to take me out. Frank Delgado and 3 others. Silence on the other end. Then, Frank Delgado? You're sure? Positive. I want you to call Vincent right now. Tell him we need to sit down. Tonight. Neutral ground. Marco, if Vincent just tried to kill you. He didn't. This is someone using his people against us. Someone who wants both families at war. I need Vincent in a room where I can ask him questions. And, if he refuses, he won't. Tell him I have proof that someone in his organization is a traitor. Tell him I'm offering a truce to find them together.
That's
Actually smart, Roberto admitted. Where do you want the meeting? Marco thought for a moment. The old warehouse on Pier 49. The one we used for the Russian negotiation. It's secure, swept for bugs, and far enough from both territories that nobody feels threatened. I'll set it up. What time?
midnight.
And Roberto?
Come armed.
If this goes wrong, I want you there. Another pause. You trust me now. I trust that you want to know who's trying to destroy us, as much as I do. Marco ended the call and looked at Sophia's notes again. Project Cicero. The name bothered him. It felt important, like a puzzle piece that didn't quite fit. Ever heard the name Cicero before? He asked Sophia. She shook her head. Should I have? Cicero was a Roman senator. Famous orator. But he was also, Marco stopped, a cold realization hitting him. He was assassinated by his enemies during a power struggle. They cut off his head and hands. Sophia paled. You think that's what this is? Someone cutting off the heads of both families. I think someone's been planning this for a long time, Marco said. And tonight, we're going to make them think they've won. He pulled out his phone and started typing a message to Roberto, a message that would be intercepted, monitored, and reported to whoever was really pulling the strings. Bringing Sophia to the meeting. She has evidence. This ends tonight.
He hit send.
The trap was set. Pier 49 stood at the edge of the city, like a forgotten monument to better days. The warehouse was a massive concrete shell, empty except for rusted chains and broken pallets. Marco had chosen it for exactly that reason. No hiding places, no escape routes, nowhere to run. At 11:45 p.m., Marco arrived with Tommy and 3 other guards. Sophia stayed in the car outside, hidden but close enough to hear everything through the wire Marco wore. Vincent Calabrese arrived 10 minutes early, a power move. He brought 4 men, all armed, all watching Marco's crew with predatory attention. Marco, Vincent said, his voice echoing in the empty space. Hell of a day we've had. That's one way to put it, Marco replied. They stood 30 feet apart, neither moving closer. Your man Frank Delgado tried to kill me this morning. Want to explain that? Vincent's face darkened. Frank's been with me for 12 years. If he made a move on you, it wasn't on my orders. Then whose orders? That's what I'm here to find out, Vincent gestured to his men. I've got 3 of my own people dead in the last 2 days. Mysterious circumstances. All of them knew about our deal. Someone's cleaning house, Marco. And they're trying to make it look like we're cleaning each other. Marco felt a chill. 3 dead on Vincent's side. 1 dead on his. Someone was eliminating anyone who could expose the real plan. Project Cicero, Marco said, watching Vincent's reaction. Vincent frowned. What? You've never heard that name?
No.
Should I have? Either Vincent was an excellent liar, or he genuinely didn't know. Marco was betting on the latter. Someone's been planning this for months, Marco explained. Planted informants moved money, set up the assassination. They used your people and mine. The goal was to start a war that would destroy both families. Who benefits from that? Vincent asked. Whoever's left standing when we're all dead. The warehouse door opened. Roberto entered, alone, his footsteps echoing. Both crews tensed, hands moving toward weapons. Easy, Roberto called out. Marco asked me to come. Said it was important, but something was wrong. Marco saw it immediately. Roberto's usual confidence was gone. He looked nervous.
Cornered.
Roberto, Marco said carefully. Where are your guards? Outside. You said to come light. I said to come armed. Not alone. Roberto stopped walking, still 20 feet away. His hand drifted toward his jacket, then stopped. Marco, I need to tell you something.
I'm listening.
I didn't want it to happen this way. You have to believe me. It wasn't supposed to, he stopped, his voice cracking. They have my daughter. The warehouse went silent. What? Marco said. My daughter, Angela. She's 16. Lives with her mother in Boston. Roberto's voice shook. 3 months ago, they took her. Said if I didn't cooperate, they'd kill her. They've been sending me pictures. Proof of life. As long as I did what they asked, she'd stay alive. Vincent swore under his breath. Marco felt his world tilting. What did they ask you to do? Information at first. Your schedule, security protocols, where you'd be, and when. Then they wanted access to accounts, passwords, contacts. I gave them everything. Roberto's face was wet with tears now. I didn't know they were going to poison you. I swear, Marco. When I found out about the wine, I tried to warn you, but it was too late. The plan was already in motion. Who are they?
Marco demanded.
I don't know. I've never seen faces. Just voices on encrypted calls and messages. But tonight, they told me to come here. Said if I wanted Angela back alive, I had to make sure neither you nor Vincent left this warehouse. Tommy's gun was out instantly. Vincent's men followed. Everyone was pointing weapons at everyone else. Roberto, Marco said, his voice deadly calm. You're telling me you led us into a trap? I'm telling you I didn't have a choice.
Roberto shouted.
What would you have done? She's 16 years old. She's innocent. How do we know she's even alive? Vincent asked. Roberto pulled out his phone with shaking hands. He held up a photo, a teenage girl tied to a chair, today's newspaper visible beside her. The timestamp read 2 hours ago. They're watching us right now, Roberto said. This place is wired with cameras. If I don't follow through, she dies. Marco's mind raced. If the warehouse was being monitored, then whoever was behind this was watching every move. They knew Marco had Sophia. They knew about the meeting. They knew everything. Where are the cameras? Marco asked. I don't know.
Hidden,
they said. Roberto stopped, his eyes widening. Oh God. What? They said to make sure everyone was inside by midnight. He looked at his watch. It's 11:59. Understanding hit Marco like a freight train. Everybody out, he screamed. Now. The warehouse exploded. The blast tore through the east wall, a wave of fire and concrete that sent everyone flying. Marco hit the ground hard, his ears ringing, lungs burning from smoke and dust. Debris rained down. Steel beams groaned overhead. Move! Tommy's voice cut through the chaos. Strong hands grabbed Marco's arm, dragging him toward the exit. Around them, Vincent's men scrambled through smoke, coughing, bleeding. They burst out into the night air. Marco collapsed on the dock, gasping. Behind them, the warehouse burned, flames licking at the night sky. Vincent. Marco choked out. Here. The fat man groaned from a few feet away. Blood ran down his face from a gash on his forehead.
Jesus Christ. Roberto? Tommy asked.
Marco looked back at the inferno. Through the smoke and flames, he couldn't see anyone else. He was closest to the blast. Tommy pulled out his phone. I'm calling fire department. No, Marco said, getting to his feet.
His whole body ached.
No authorities. Not yet. Boss, there might be survivors. There aren't, Marco knew it in his bones. The explosion had been precisely placed, timed perfectly. Whoever set it wanted everyone dead. The only reason he and Vincent survived was pure luck. They'd been far enough from the blast point. Vincent stood, wiping blood from his eyes. My men. Mine too, Marco said. 3 of his guards had been inside. All dead now. This was meant to finish both families in one move. Roberto set us up, Vincent spat. Roberto was being blackmailed. Marco turned away from the burning building. His mind was racing past shock, past grief, straight into cold calculation. His daughter was hostage. He didn't have a choice. Everyone has a choice. Do they? Marco looked at Vincent. What would you have done? Vincent had no answer. Marco's phone buzzed, miraculously undamaged. A text from Sophia's number, but the message made his blood freeze. Nice try. But you can't win this game. By morning, both your organizations will tear each other apart. The proof is already planted. Evidence in Roberto's apartment, money transfers in Vincent's accounts, testimony from witnesses who'll swear you both ordered hits. The war starts at dawn whether you're alive or dead. You're finished, DeLuca. Project Cicero. Marco showed the message to Vincent. This is insane, Vincent said. We can prove. Prove what? That we're innocent?
To who?
The families are primed for war. Roberto's dead. Evidence is planted. By the time we try to explain, half our people will be killing the other half. Tommy approached, his face grim. Boss, we need to disappear.
Right now.
Whoever did this will send cleanup crews. But Marco wasn't listening. His mind was working through possibilities, discarding them as fast as they appeared. Fighting was impossible. The war would destroy everything. Running meant abandoning his empire. Proving innocence would take time they didn't have. Unless. I'm dead, Marco said suddenly. What? Tommy and Vincent said simultaneously. As of tonight, Marco DeLuca died in that explosion. He pointed at the burning warehouse. Killed in a betrayal by his consigliera, Roberto Castillo. Body burned beyond recognition. No survivors. Vincent stared at him. You can't be serious. It's the only play left. If I'm dead, there's no war. No reason for the families to fight. Roberto takes the blame. He's dead too. Can't defend himself. Project Cicero loses their scapegoat. And what about me? Vincent asked. They planted evidence in my accounts too. You survived the explosion, Marco said, thinking fast. Barely. You're the victim here. Roberto tried to kill both of us. You can spin it however you want. Tell your people I died before you could question me. No war, no retaliation. Just two families who lost their leaders to a traitor. This is insane, Tommy said. Boss, if you fake your death, I lose everything. I know. Marco looked at the flames. 25 years of building power, gone in one night. But if he stayed, everyone died. His people, Vincent's people, hundreds of civilians caught in crossfire. Sophia had been right. Stopping the war was more important than pride. There's a body in there, Marco said quietly. Roberto's. Similar build to mine. By the time forensics gets through, with the right dental record switched, the right DNA sample planted, he looked at Tommy. Can you make it work? Tommy's jaw clenched.
Yes.
But Marco. Do it. Tonight. Before anyone else arrives, Marco turned to Vincent. You're going to have to sell this. Convince everyone I'm dead. Vincent studied him for a long moment. Why should I? Because if you don't, we both lose everything. And whoever's behind Project Cicero wins. Vincent looked at the burning warehouse, then back at Marco. Finally, he nodded. You're a crazy son of a bitch, DeLuca. Yeah, Marco agreed. But I'm a live one. 5 days later, the Cathedral of St. Anthony was packed with over 1,000 mourners. Black suits, dark veils, whispered conversations. The elite of the city's underworld had come to pay respects to Marco DeLuca, businessman, philanthropist, and, according to the carefully crafted story, victim of a treacherous betrayal. Sophia stood in the back, wearing a simple black dress and sunglasses. Nobody looked at her twice. Just another mourner among hundreds. The closed casket sat at the altar, draped in white roses. Inside was Roberto Castillo's body, dental records altered, DNA sample switched. Tommy had worked through the night to make it perfect. The official story: Marco DeLuca and 3 of his men died in an explosion caused by Roberto, who'd been secretly working with rivals to start a gang war. Roberto died in the blast as well. Poetic justice. Vincent Calabrese sat in the front row, his head bandaged, playing his part perfectly. He'd given a statement to police. Roberto had lured them both to the warehouse, planning to kill them and frame each other's families. Vincent barely escaped. Marco wasn't so lucky. The priest droned on about eternal rest and mercy. Sophia watched the faces in the crowd. Some showed genuine grief. Marco had been respected, even loved by his people. Others showed calculation, already thinking about the power vacuum, the opportunities. And some showed satisfaction. Sophia spotted him in the fourth row, a man in his 50s, expensive suit, silver cufflinks. He wasn't crying. He was smiling. Just slightly, but enough. She snapped a photo with her phone, zoomed in. The cufflinks had an engraving, a small circular design. She'd seen that design before in her brother's notes. The symbol of Project Cicero. After the service, the crowd filed out to the cemetery. A plot had been purchased on a hill overlooking the city, the kind of view reserved for the wealthy and powerful. The casket was lowered slowly, while the priest said final prayers. Sophia kept her distance, watching through a telephoto lens. The man with the cufflinks stood apart from the main group. He made a phone call, speaking briefly, then hung up and smiled again. He thought he'd won. Later that evening, as the last mourners left flowers at the graveside, Sophia received a text. "Did you see him?" She typed back, "Fourth row. Silver cufflinks. Made a call right after burial.
Good.
Send me the photo." She forwarded it immediately. 30 seconds later, her phone rang. She answered but said nothing. "That's Anthony Greco," Marco's voice said. He sounded different, tired, older somehow. "My father's old attorney. Been with the family for 20 years. I trusted him completely. He's Project Cicero?" "Part of it." "Maybe all of it," Marco sighed. "I should have seen it." He had access to everything, accounts, schedules, contacts. He knew my father's business inside and out. When the old man died, Anthony helped me take over. Guided me. And the whole time, he was positioning himself to take it all. What now? Now we wait. See what he does with his victory. Sophia looked back at the empty cemetery. Your empire is fractured, Marco. Vincent's family is absorbing your territories. Your people are scattered, confused. Even if Anthony's exposed, there's nothing left to take back. I know. So, what was the point? A long pause. Then, the point was that nobody died. No gang war. No innocent civilians caught in crossfire. Anthony wanted chaos. He got my funeral instead. That's a win in my book. Sophia heard something in his voice. Not quite regret, but close. Marco DeLuca had given up everything. Power, wealth, respect. His own identity. All to stop a war. "Where are you?" she asked. "Somewhere safe. Tommy got me out of the city. New identity, new life, another pause. What about you? You holding up okay?"
"I'm alive."
"My family's alive. That's what matters." She watched the sun setting over the city. The papers are saying Roberto was the mastermind. That he kidnapped his own daughter to cover his tracks. Let them say it. Roberto's dead either way. At least this version doesn't destroy his daughter's life. What about his daughter? Is she safe? Vincent's people found her 3 days ago. Locked in a basement across town. She's with her mother now. Doesn't know her father died trying to save her. Sophia felt tears prick her eyes. Maybe someone should tell her. Maybe. Someday, Marco's voice softened. "Listen, I wanted to thank you.
You didn't have to warn me that night. Didn't have to help.
You could have just run. My brother died because he got involved with bad people. I wasn't going to let hundreds more die, because I stayed silent. You're a good person, Sophia Castellano. I'm a waitress who committed fraud and conspiracy. Pretty sure that's not good." Marco actually laughed, a short, bitter sound. "In our world, that makes you a saint." A car pulled up near the cemetery entrance. Black sedan, tinted windows. "I have to go," Sophia said. "One more thing," Marco added quickly. "The money. The account I set up for you." "I know. Tommy told me. It's too much, Marco. It's not enough. You saved my life. You get to start over, same as me." The car honked twice. "Goodbye, Marco." Goodbye, Sophia. She ended the call and walked toward the car. Tommy was driving, ready to take her to the airport. New city, new name, new life. Just like Marco. Behind her, the sun disappeared below the horizon, and the city lights began to flicker on. 6 months later, the coastal town of Monterroso clung to the cliffs like a painting someone forgot to finish. Pastel houses stacked on top of each other, narrow streets that smelled like salt and lemons, fishing boats bobbing in the harbor. Tourists came for the views and left with full hearts and empty wallets. Marco, now known as Michael Romano, sat at a small outdoor cafe, watching the Mediterranean turn gold in the afternoon sun. His hair was longer now, touched with more gray. A beard covered the face that had once appeared in newspapers. Wire-rimmed glasses completed the disguise. He looked like a retired teacher. Maybe a writer working on a novel he'd never finish. Nobody looked at him twice. The waitress brought him an espresso, and he thanked her in decent Italian. 6 months of practice. 6 months of learning how to be invisible, how to be normal, how to exist without power. It was harder than he'd expected. Some days he missed it. The weight of authority, the electric feeling of walking into a room and watching people straighten up, the simple clarity of giving orders and watching them executed. But mostly he didn't. Mostly, he sat at cafes and read books and slept without guards outside his door. Is this seat taken? Marco looked up. Sophia stood there, a summer dress replacing the black morning clothes, her hair shorter and highlighted with copper. She looked younger. Lighter. Sophia, he said, smiling. You're early. Flight was faster than expected. She sat down, setting her bag on the empty chair. This place is beautiful. How'd you find it? Tommy's suggestion. His grandmother was from here. Marco gestured to the server. 2 glasses of white wine. The local 1-inch. They waited in comfortable silence until the wine arrived, pale gold in simple glasses, condensation already forming in the warm air. To new beginnings? Sophia offered. I've had enough new beginnings for one lifetime. Marco lifted his glass. How about to the truth? The truth, Sophia echoed. They drank. The wine was crisp, clean, tasted like sunshine. Nothing like the 1947 Chateau d'Yquem that had almost killed him. This was better. Tommy sent his regards, Marco said. He's running a security consulting business in Prague now. Legitimate. Says he's never been happier. And Vincent. Still alive. Still in power. Absorbed about 60% of my old territory. Made peace with the Russians. He's actually running things better than I did, Marco smiled ruefully. Turns out I wasn't as indispensable as I thought. What about Anthony Greco? Marco's smile faded. Found dead 2 months ago. Heart attack in his office. Very sudden. Very convenient. Sophia raised an eyebrow. Tommy? I didn't ask. Some questions are better left unanswered. He swirled his wine. The daughter, Angela Castillo, is doing well. Vincent set up a trust fund for her. Full college scholarship. She thinks her father died a hero trying to stop a terrorist attack. Close enough to the truth. And the war that never happened. Never happened. Some skirmishes, a few broken alliances, but nothing major. Turns out when both leaders die at the same time, people are more interested in survival than revenge. Marco looked out at the water. All those years building an empire, and the best thing I ever did was walk away from it. Sophia followed his gaze. Do you regret it? Every day, he said it simply, honestly. And not at all. Strange how both can be true. A fishing boat entered the harbor, its engine putting softly. An old man at the helm waved to someone on shore. Simple. Uncomplicated. What will you do now? Sophia asked. Learn to paint, maybe. I'm terrible at it. But that's the point. Nobody expects Michael Romano to be good at anything, he smiled. What about you? I'm enrolled at university. Psychology. Start in September, she laughed. Turns out saving someone's life looks good on applications. Even if I had to lie about how I did it. Not a lie. You stopped a war. That's exactly what you should be proud of. They finished their wine as the sun dipped lower, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. Around them, The town came alive. People heading home from work, children playing in the square, couples walking hand in hand. Normal life. The kind Marco had spent 25 years protecting and never experiencing. "Can I ask you something?"
Sophia said.
"That night at the restaurant, when I warned you, were you scared?"
Marco thought about it.
Terrified. Not of dying, of being wrong about people, of realizing I'd built everything on sand. He turned to her. "Were you?" "Absolutely. I thought you'd kill me just for speaking." "I almost did." They both laughed, the kind of laughter that comes from surviving something that should have destroyed you. The server brought the check. Marco paid in cash, leaving a generous tip. They stood to leave, and Sophia paused. "Do you think we'll ever see each other again after this?"
Probably not, Marco said honestly.
"That's the point of disappearing." "Then I'm glad we got this." "Me too." They walked together to the edge of the square, where Sophia's taxi waited to take her to her hotel. Before she got in, she turned and hugged him. Brief, sincere, the embrace of two people who'd shared something most people never would. "Take care of yourself, Michael Romano." "You too, Sofia Castellano." She got in the taxi and disappeared into the evening traffic. Marco walked back to his small apartment above the cafe, climbed the narrow stairs, and opened the door to a life that held no power, no empire, no legacy beyond the quiet satisfaction of still being alive. On the small balcony, he poured himself another glass of wine, cheap local stuff from the corner store, and raised it to the empty evening. To the night someone whispered the truth. He said to no one. The Mediterranean whispered back, and the man who used to be Marco De Luca smiled. The war had never happened. That was the real victory.